You are listening to Talking Images, the official podcast of icmforum.com. Hi everyone, and this will be a very special episode. It will actually play out as both an interview of two great people and a mad and exciting origin story that you might not even believe. Today I'm joined by the founders of icmforum.com themselves, Lauren and Adam, or as you might know them on the forum, Mighty Sparks and, well, Adam H., who is of course also our co-producer. This is the official podcast of icmforum.com, and I am also one of the moderators. If you listen into our previous podcast episode about the decline of forums, you get a pretty good idea. No, we love this forum. We love what we do here. So this may turn into a little bit of a circle jerk, but we'll try not to. I mean, you can trust Saul and myself to ask them all the hard questions, such as how it feels to have created one of the best and most active film forums on the web, and just how great it is to be them. Oh yes, you know there will be blood. So let's just jump right into it. Adam and Lauren can introduce themselves and just give a very quick pitch as to why someone would want to join icmforum.com. And we can start with Lauren.
So I'm Lauren, Mighty Sparks, and the ICM Forum is a really diverse group of people, from people who are obsessed with spreadsheets and lists and challenges, to people who just want to discuss all kinds of films and everything about film. So it's basically for everyone.
I'm Adam, also known very originally as Adam H on the forum. I would add to what Lauren said and say it's about discussing films, but it's also a community, and people are very supportive of everyone else on there. So it's a good community to be part of.
Whereas all of us mentioned in the previous episode, it's also one of the very few people where you don't have all of these angry people who want to drag you down at every single turn just for disliking a film. So that's pretty special. And thank you again for setting that up, guys. So before we jump into the questions, we can just introduce ourselves as well. No, I've already gone. You heard my voice. But we need to do this thing every single time where, all of the co-hosts actually introduces themselves just so you can know their voice and recognize them. So even though he's person been in every single episode, I believe, Saul, why don't you just introduce yourself and just tell us how you found the forum?
I'm Saul. I'm 33 years old from Australia. I came across ICM Forum for the first time when we were doing the doubling the canon exercise on the classic film board on IMDb. And then when IMDb shut down its forums, I had to look elsewhere to find somewhere to post. And ICM Forum was a godsend, and I migrated there very quickly, and I've been very happy there since. And I am competing at the moment to try and get the most posts on the board.
So how many are you up to now?
Okay, let me go check, because I've got it open in one of the windows here. Okay, I am currently at 8,745 posts. According to these statistics, I've posted 6.97 posts per day. My posts make up 1.35% of all the posts on the forum.
Yeah, that's pretty extreme. We can pretty much call you a forum super fan. And just this love for stat is also one thing you'll notice from so many members too. I also have to say that, I was one of the original members. I think I was member number 7, joining on May 6, 2011. And you've almost beaten me, so I'm just at 10,878 at this point. So it's just, yeah, you're going to beat every single person on that forum.
Oh, well, maybe. We'll see if I keep posting at this rate over the next few years. I am member number 1,343, which sounds like a lot, but I guess it just goes to show how popular the website is.
Well, absolutely. I think we have about 1,700 members plus. But bring this towards Adam and Lauren. I just want to start off with a question that probably would seem easy, but maybe a little bit more complicated. So just How did you two first meet?
Well, I joined the Facebook group for I Check Movies in 2010-ish, and Adam was already on there, but we didn't really talk until it was the end of the year, and me, him, and John, I was up late one night, and we started doing plays on names of the top 250 movies, and basically going, like Lauren Happened One Night, or One Flew Over Adam's Nest. And we spent like 3 hours doing that, and then we started talking from there.
Okay, well, I met Lauren in the same way that she met me.
Isn't that the perfect way to just sum up an encounter? So obviously this started so many things long term, but we promised you a bit of a show here. We promised you something a little bit more extreme. We promised you wars. We promised you hardship.
I am very intrigued by all of this.
I want to go all the way back to the very beginning of how this entire community came together. It's a little bit strange, and when I talked about before this podcast started, it may even turn into a little bit of an interrogation. So let's take it back to the very, very, very beginning. I Check Movies itself. When did you join, and when did you get the invite for the Facebook group? And we're going to start alluding to a certain character who, for the purpose of this podcast, will be known as Al.
When you call me out.
And I think Adam actually had the very first encounters here, because his relationship to the mystery figure known as Al went all the way back pre-ICM to a specific Facebook group, actually. So I want to talk a little bit about that, Adam.
Okay, I may not remember the timelines perfectly. I'm sure Lauren has it all listed in a spreadsheet. I started working on the IMDb Top 250. I joined the Facebook group, and a few of us were regulars on there. I'm not sure how many of us actually made it to ICM in the end, but I know John was on there, Al was on there, and there was a couple of others from the old days. And we were regularly posting to say we'd watched, certain films, and then John made the infamous quote about how he was 14 and he'd nailed the top 250 at some point. And yeah, so what happened? I started looking for a website to track the top 250, and I actually found one. I can't remember the name. I mean, when I joined the Facebook group, it must have been end of 2008 or start of 2009. And I found a website which all it was you were tracking the top 250. So you just had to like click on each film you'd seen and it gave you a number. That was it. And then I started thinking, I want to look at other lists. So I started looking for other options, and I found I Check Movies. And then I started telling people about it. So I remember I told Al about it for like about 4 months or something before he eventually joined. And I think I got other people to join as well. I mean, if I check, I ended up joining 5th of November 2009. And I think the website hadn't been around for that long before then. Actually, yeah, what happened? So a few of us posted on there. Al and I started speaking about the idea of creating an I Check Movies Facebook group. And then there was about 5 or 6 of us from the top 250 group that ended up creating the Facebook I Check Movies group. And the idea was supposed to be that Al would be the admin. So he was the one that clicked create, which, in case people are not aware, the act of clicking create on Facebook actually involves about probably 100,000 hours of work. Just to normal people, you think you just click a Facebook group and invite people. So there's a misconception, unfortunately, online. It's quite sad. There's a misconception that clicking that button creates the group and you're done. Then the group's created. But what the reality was, I think Facebook has actually changed over the years. So any younger listeners, they're not going to be able to relate to this. In order to click that button, you have to first of all come up with policies. And Al decided to come up with 10,000 words of policies. He also decided to come up with a questionnaire. So I'm not joking about any of this, actually. So he came up with a questionnaire. So there was about 5 of us plus Al. John was one of them, and there was some others. And Al sent round this massive questionnaire, and we had to answer every single question about the Facebook group. And I remember at that stage, it was agreed I would be the co-admin. I'd be given, you used to, on Facebook, you used to get officer titles, which, sad as it might seem, became big drama. So I was supposed to be co-admin. And then I also remember one person hadn't replied to the message, and there was, Al launched a big investigation into it. But in the end, it turned out the guy was on holiday. So Al was a bit more lenient with him. But John, who was 14 at the time, he hadn't replied at all, or I think he ended up replying with like one sentence or something, and that resulted in him getting jokey titles because I was seriously not impressed by his lack of commitment, and that's pretty much the story of how the group started originally. And I know that Al was then in touch with the guys on icmforum.com, and they agreed that he could start an unofficial I Check Movies Facebook group, which Al claimed it was officially an unofficial I Check Movies Facebook group, and that's the that's the backstory as to how the group came about. I'm not sure the differences between an unofficial Facebook group and an officially unofficial Facebook group, but what we had was an officially unofficial Facebook group, and that's an important distinction.
And that even became the early tagline of this show as well.
If you want the exact story, I'm not sure, he messaged it to someone. I don't know if it was Chris or someone else, but he sent a message. Was it you, Chris, that he messaged you? Was it not you that he messaged to say it was officially unofficial?
Oh, lots of people, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
he sent a
Yes.
message saying this is just one I Check Movies group. It's officially an unofficial Facebook group, and other people are welcome to start up new ones. But no one took up the offer.
Oh, lovely. So, Lauren, just to cut you in here as well, what's your first memory of joining the Facebook group? And of course, the mysterious Al.
I first noticed that he liked to talk a lot, but at first he seemed, really friendly, and that's what I liked about the Facebook group is, rather than IMDb with all the death threats, it was very friendly and playful and nice and stuff like that. But as the time went on, he did get very authoritative, of all the other admin type people on there, but I didn't really see any of this behind the scenes stuff because I wasn't involved as a moderator or anything like that.
I think the warning sign was that they called all of the moderators officers.
Yeah.
I actually remember John, like I said, John got jokey titles and he kept changing them. And actually, before I get into that, Casper was can anyone remember the exact name? Casper was something like the I Check Movies integrity consultant or something. Lauren, you must remember it.
I don't remember any of the titles.
Basically, Casper was in charge of, people cheating. Casper was
Yeah. Oh God,
Casper was assigned that role. It was something like, I wish I could remember the exact thing, but yeah, it was something like I just said. It was all about. It was kind of like a jokey, over the top title, but based
It
on.
wasn't a joke. It wasn't a joke.
I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be generous.
Is the cheating like checking films you haven't seen? Is that what he meant by cheating?
Yeah. So if you want that, that's another story. So Facebook groups have changed now. So many years ago, they were done differently, and you used to have there was another section on the group that you could go on, and it was kind of like a forum, but on Facebook, so you could start up topics. Yeah. Al was very, very, very serious about every single thing in the world, but in particular, he was serious about people cheating. And as one of the topics on the Facebook group, he set up, and it was called, people might be checking movies they haven't actually seen. Yeah, with the question mark, exclamation mark, question mark, exclamation mark, which has become a running joke on the forum. And he posted, I can't remember it exactly, but he posted a massive post. There was also, as part of that, there was another famous line from the forum, which was, what constitutes a check? I think he had a list of different things, does it count as a check if you're watching a film for 2 hours and you're not completely concentrating? Does it count if, you're in the cinema, but you've left for 5 minutes to get popcorn and come back? Is that a check? If the film is in color, you saw it in black and white, or vice versa. Basically, every single scenario under the sun. I mean, if the subtitles aren't absolutely perfect, is that a check? Everything you can think of. Maybe maybe you looked away from the screen for 5 seconds. Is that still a check?
I might just jump in and just say I think it would have been really interesting talking to Al because I really want to do a film purism podcast at some stage. Talk about, do you actually sit down and watch a film without looking away? Because I know some people like Tom is a film purist and I'm not. I watch a film in bits and pieces if I can't do it in one go. So I think it's interesting. I don't know how much I'll debate it to death, but I think it's an interesting topic.
It would definitely be a mini-series with Al.
Yeah, I mean, I think Saul was giving Al a little bit too much credit. I don't think it's because he was a film purist. I think it's because he liked to control things.
And I think it's important to note what we talk about when we talk about cheating too, because Isaac Movies has a very tiny function of the site, which is just people's rank, and it's based on how many films they've checked that are also on official lists. And what he meant by cheaters are people who checked films they hadn't seen. To Al, cheating was like a genuine crime. And it's important to just realize that he and others, and he would have his officers do this, would map out every single film that in some way was unavailable or might not be available. Like, for instance, a film has only been shown in these cinemas, and they would try to catch people who might not have been able to go to that cinema. So, and there would be so much suspicion and follow-ups and messaging people. Like they would have long rants on this thread about this horrible cheater who couldn't have seen this film because it hadn't been shown in decades. And then we realized it was a 70-year-old woman, and they had been essentially saying terrible, nasty things about her for days. So it's just this extreme insanity.
Yeah, just to give a little bit more backdrop. So Lauren wasn't as active in this story at the start, which is why I'm talking so much. But what ended up happening was Al kept changing John's officer title because John hadn't completed the questionnaire, and Al felt that John was not contributing enough as a 14-year-old to the Facebook group. And in protest, so John messaged Al, and then eventually in protest, John ended up quitting the Facebook group. And then there was also, I have to mention it. This was like 11 years ago or something. So there was also a running saga where Al also. It sounds quite very sad now bringing it up, actually speaking rather than typing about it. But I was supposed to be the co-admin on the website, and I think Al ended up removing my title, and we ended up in the big. There was various arguments, and after John quit, I also ended up quitting.
But Adam, the reason why he removed your title was because you weren't contributing enough and you were speaking against his authority.
Yeah, actually, in John's case, he wasn't contributing, but in my case, it was because I sent a message. So he wasn't. I don't think he was. Yeah, the contributions was one of the issues, but on that cheaters topic on the Facebook group, he'd written this massive thing, and he talked about felony cheater. So it wasn't, there's different levels of cheaters, and one of them was felony cheater. And I ended up replying or messaging him and saying, maybe we're taking the whole cheaters on the website thing a tiny bit too seriously. And yeah, Al ended up incredibly angry at the betrayal from me. And all of that contributed to John and I quitting the I Check Movies group. And at that point, I don't think Lauren would have been a member, but I don't know if we'd actually spoken at that point. I can't remember properly.
I remember you going very quiet on the group for a long time, and then, we didn't speak until months after all that happened.
I think it was one of the infamous silent protests that Lauren and I did, where we would just not post anything or do anything for a few days and hope that someone noticed our absence. It was a long time ago.
So Lauren, what was the first point you started realizing that something was slightly strange here?
Well, like I said, he did post very authoritative stuff, and I thought the cheating thing was a little over the top, but I didn't really realize how bad it was until we actually started the forum and I started getting messages from him.
No, I think for me, because I remember Adam quitting and John quitting, and they set up like this mini Facebook group on the side with just the people they were talking the most to. And most of us stayed members because we didn't really think these things were as big a deal. We thought, okay, this guy is a little bit over the top, but everyone else are nice. There's lots of decent opinions. It's fun. There's no point in actually leaving. But then some things started getting more and more and more bizarre. Like we're going to get to the final blow a little bit later, but I remember, I know Alan has actually saved the quote, which is fantastic. But I remember, I don't know if it was on the cheaters or just like the rules for some pool or some pool they had there. But I remember typing that I thought some of the rules were a little bit excessive, and that to get people to participate and have it be a little more fun, we could just thin down the rules a little bit. I mean, this resulted in just at least one A4 page message about how negative I was and how I was ruining the atmosphere and how everything was so terrible. And it has the most insane quote in it where he says, like, it's very seriously worded as well, by the way, about how I made him feel. And then he added in, it's like I threw a party and you show up to the party uninvited. I let you in, but then you instantly start to drink all my beer, trash my place, and flirt with all my women. And I just also love the fact that he wrote my women, which is also just so bloody weird.
So yeah, after all that happened, John and I created a new Facebook group, which had a very original title, which was Movies. And we invited a small number of other people who we knew already. And Lauren ended up joining, Chris joined, Casper was there, and a couple others. And then that became a really active group. We would talk all the time.
Very rarely about movies.
Yeah, it was discussions until 7 a.m. about very random stuff. And then at some point along the line, Lauren and I started discussing the idea of creating an I Check Movies forum, an officially unofficial I Check Movies forum, because, the Facebook group, it's not the greatest platform for the discussions. At some point, they also changed Facebook groups and made it worse for discussions, but also to join the Facebook group, someone has to have a profile, their real name, obviously they could create a fake one. It wasn't a great platform, having people posting their real names. I think it should always be optional. I don't think it should be so easy for people to find out who everyone else is. And we felt there was a lot of potential to create a forum for the website.
And I think also the Facebook group would often go off topic. It was usually like it would start off about movies and it would just descend into jokes and other things. And we thought that a forum would keep things more focused.
Yeah, exactly. And Facebook groups with instant replies and, it just turns into a bit of a joke.
And I think it has to be part of the story just that as movies, the Facebook group stayed up, we also got more and more refugees from the officially unofficial I Check Movies Facebook group as well, because Al kept escalating the kind of crazy stuff he was pulling.
Yeah, and what was quite sad was we decided to create the forum just because we thought that the forum was a good idea. I think, I'd mentioned it to a couple of people before, and we wanted it to be a forum where everyone could join, kind of, it would unite everyone because it was a very strange time. And unfortunately, when the news got out that we wanted to create a forum, it escalated the conflict. And, Al thought that we were doing it to get back at him for revenge. And, we actually said to each other, if Al joins the forum, he was welcome to join, basically. We wanted it to unite everyone and have one platform where we can all discuss. And yeah, unfortunately, Al didn't really look at it exactly like that.
Yeah, we saw it as kind of being side by side the Facebook group, not a replacement.
Yeah, sorry, that's true. I didn't mean one platform for it. It was supposed to be, you could continue to post on Facebook, but you'd also have the option of posting on a forum if you wanted.
Something I've got to ask. Did you guys get permission from the guys at ICM before calling it ICM Forum?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so...
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's another long story, which I'm not going to go into in much detail. But so the Facebook group originally, Al had got permission for that to use the name. And when we decided to start up a forum, we also asked them for permission, the guys on icmforum.com, and they said yes. And at that point, it wasn't ICM Forum. It was, when we first started, we were the officially unofficial I Check Movies Forum, and the website was on Zeta boards. And they said yes, basically, as long as it was unofficial. And they were quite positive when we first messaged them. But then, unfortunately, the conflict kind of had a big impact on everything. I think they came a little bit more reluctant to get involved because they'd seen the dramas and they got various messages from people about Facebook, and it was quite sad.
I think it's a bit of a shame that ICM Forum and the official I Check Movies website don't have more of a stronger relationship, because I think our forum does more to promote members towards I Check Movies than any other website on the whole of the internet.
I mean, Lauren can jump in as well. Our idea from the start was to have an official forum, and we wanted to be linked completely to them. We wanted the link to be on the website, and we were quite obsessed with the idea because we thought the reason we were so strongly about it was because we thought that if there was a proper link and it was an official forum, we thought there was a huge amount of potential.
I think, yeah, once Al started messaging them and all the drama started, the I Check Movies guys kind of do it aside from it, and it took us years to get a link on there.
Yeah, if you go onto the I Check Movies website, you scroll right down to the bottom, there is a section that has, various pages, Twitter, Facebook, and links like that. And there is a forum link. And after, it must have been a good few years after we started, but they added a link to the bottom.
I think the only time that I've seen a link to ICM Forum on Check Movies is when the website's been down. Occasionally it'll say, our website's down for maidenness. You can go on Reddit or you can go on I Check Movies Forum. But sometimes it just says you can go on Reddit if it's down. It doesn't always say ICM Forum. So otherwise, I don't really see it mentioned much at all on the website, which is a bit of a shame. But it would be nice to have some more acknowledgement on there, especially with the official lists over there. We've got one official list for our forum, which is 500 under 400 checks. Things like our top 1,000, considering that we do more than any other website to promote it, might be a nice gesture if we had more official lists on there from our forum.
Yeah, but I do think though that our relationship with them improved a lot over the years. So the drama set us back for sure. It seemed a bit immature, and it was a bit immature because this war that started was just utterly ridiculous, and it's sad that it ever happened, and it's just mostly one person overreacting and taking it way, way, way too far. And we're going to get into some of the things we got a little bit later, but then with the story is actually a really close and good relationship with I Check Movies, in that they eventually added the link, and then they added one of our lists as officials. Anyone can find us through there, and all of them also post on the forum quite regularly. So the relationship was strained at first, but then it actually became quite good.
One thing I think is important is when all this drama was going on at the start, I mean, the age of the people who were involved with this, we went from 14 to, I was 21 by the time I joined I Check Movies, I think, 21, 22. So it was all very, when the Facebook drama happened, we were all very young, apart from Al, who was, I don't know what he was, 40s or 50s or something. So, this stuff might sound quite immature. It might sound like ridiculous kind of drama, but we were all kind of school age or university age. And I think everyone kind of bonded over Facebook. And yeah, I feel quite sad looking back about how it all happened. And, particularly with John, who was only 14, I think,
Oh yeah, John got it worse.
I think we all had immaturity, but I think we all had the right, had our heart in the right place in terms of the forum and everything, and wanting a community to discuss films.
And I think that ties in with what we talked about last episode too, in terms of just forums usually being that teenager to 20-something group, and at our forum, like the majority are over 30. I think we are one of the most mature forums now, but back then it was just extremely immature for a little while as well. But the majority of the immaturity was coming from a man in his 50s, and that's also saying something which is very, very strange. Because like we said, there was some immaturity, and that was the fact that one of the people involved in this was a 14-year-old boy, and that's also what, like, I think I was, when all this was coming down, I was 20, 22, and this was 2010, right? Yeah, I was 20, Adam was 21,
I was 19.
yeah, Lauren was 19. So it's like everyone involved was quite young, but I think all of us were actually quite mature about it as well. The main issue was that there was one 14-year-old there, and he came into some fight with Al. And I don't think he was being particularly unreasonable. He was complaining about his joke titles, and Al sent a lot of abuse. One of the reasons why all of this imploded for Al in the end was because the 14-year-old leaked the messages, and they were absolutely horrifying. And I think they shocked all of us. I think I left that day. I think a lot of other people also left that day. I messaged Al personally just to let him know that, I'm sorry, like this Facebook group has been great, but I can't unsee this, and I left. Some other people did the same, and I think actually the next day or that week, Al just deleted the entire group.
I guess that's a lot like how the IMDb message boards ended. They decided to delete them, and Al decided to delete his group, which I guess has given rise for ICM Forum to rising up and getting better over the years.
Well, I think he deleted the group within a week of us starting the forum. I think we hadn't even publicly told anyone about it. We invited people like Chris and Casper just to sort of test it out and be mods. And I think it was that told Al about it. And then, yeah, he just went crazy sort of on everybody. And then, yeah, he just deleted it. So it was gone before the forum really even began.
I think there's so much more to this story too, including the split in the so-called officers and additional Facebook groups and accusations of all kinds coming through that would just last for a very long time with a lot of really sad, bad blood. But I think in the end, though, it was like a perfect rise from fire, because that group disappeared. Everyone essentially came to the forum, and yes, there was some edginess around this for a slight amount of time, but slowly but surely everything started to get a lot more mature.
It started off quite small because we pretty much just invited all the people that we were sort of friends with in the Facebook groups. And then I think Adam just started to like spam everyone on I Check Movies asking them to join.
What's the best way to recruit members, depending on what the spam message is like?
We had a couple of issues when we started the forum. The first one was, we'd wanted to be this official forum with a proper sort of advert on I Check Movies, and it didn't really happen. When we did start the forum, we had to just make people we knew moderators. We had no idea how many people would join. We had no real way of getting people to join. And I ended up messaging like the top 500 or more users, inviting them, because it was kind of the only way we could do it. It was quite sad, because if there'd been a proper link up, I think it would have worked differently. But in the end, we spent a massive amount of time just trying to get anyone to join, and we had no idea if we'd have like 50 users or however many.
Out of 500, how many do you think joined because of the message?
I'd have to look. I mean, I remember us originally inviting the top 100 and getting really excited when anyone joined. Some people would join and stick around, some would be gone straight away, or some just didn't join at all. But I don't know, maybe Lauren can answer, because I'm not that sure.
I don't know the exact numbers, but I mean, that's what gave us enough regular users to keep it going and then eventually get more. And I know that Adam re-messaged everyone some months later, and maybe again, he did it a few times, I think.
Yeah, it was basically the case. If we didn't send messages, we would have no forum. So it took a lot. There wasn't security back then, though, so you didn't have to enter the code every time. You could just send a message. So it was just copying and pasting it. But it did take a lot of dedication. But it was only, if we hadn't done that, there wouldn't be a forum today, to be honest.
I just have to say that I love the fact that the main type of moderation that all of us do today is just removing spam, and that the forum essentially was born out of spam.
Yeah, but
It was good
it was
spam.
nice spam.
It's very true, very nice.
It was a very
spam.
polite invite, and if they didn't join, then we left them alone.
No, you didn't. You said you just.
I don't know. I think Lauren's mistaken. I think we messaged people maybe once or twice. So. No, we did send a couple of invites, but a lot of the people we messaged weren't even active anymore on the website, Magic Movies, so they never read it. Yeah, actually, one of the mistakes we made at the start was when people joined the forum, they had to message us on iCheck Movies to say that to confirm that they had joined the forum and it wasn't someone because we were so worried at the start after the Facebook experience that some people would join and like fake usernames and ruin the site. So we made every single user message us to say, and obviously it sounds ridiculous now, and it was a big mistake because it would have put people off. I mean, if you've got to go through all those steps, what I've learned from being like admin is you have to make it as easy as possible for people to join the forum. You know, over the years we've had various things where at first people had to message us to join. Then we've had like the forums offline unless you're a member. You know, I tried to join a different forum. I wasn't really going to post much, but I tried to join a different forum a couple of weeks ago, and I got this thing saying, a message saying like, admin has to approve you. Then my account ended up getting deleted with no explanation, and I found out later they're deleting everyone who they think is a spammer. So if you are doing a forum, you know, if you make it difficult for people to join, then they just won't bother. You know, so that's one thing. You have to make it as easy as possible. And I think we've been at that point for a good amount of time now. But at first we did make mistakes like that.
And I think it's also worth noting that we had slight reason to be paranoid because there was at least one person who presented himself as Al's first officer, who was essentially trolling the forum and finding every way he could to attack it. So just for all you listeners out there, there's so much we're leaving out of this story, but there's also so much bizarre craziness going on here that we can't even begin to get into.
Ask a more general question.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so something which I sometimes wonder is, do you guys tell people in your life that you've started a movie forum and that it's so active, or is it something that doesn't really come up in conversation?
We once joked about putting it on our resumes.
Was that a joke? I had it on mine. In fact, when I got interviewed for my current job, it was an admin position. And I remember I ended up getting the job, obviously, but the interview went quite well. And then they were like, "Have you got anything else to add?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I'm an admin on a forum, you know, trying to make a connection." Yeah, he didn't. I don't know why, but they didn't go, "Wow, that's great." They just kind of. I don't think they even said anything back to it. But yeah, it was on my CV as well, and I think, yeah, it still is. I didn't know that was a joke. I didn't. The joke was like I didn't put.
It was a joke
The,
at the time.
no, the joke was like that we were going to put on our CV. I'm an admin of a forum with like 1,200 members. So obviously, all I put was like in personal interest. I just put I run a forum because actually, as like a tiny extra, it's all right. If you brag about it, it's a bit pathetic. But if you just mention you're an admin, at least it shows you have some kind of interests and hobbies. But yeah, a tip for anyone is don't really mention it in an interview. It doesn't get a brilliant reception.
Though I do think though that when you have one of the biggest film forums, it does say a little bit more than like say 9 years ago when it was 50 or 100 people. Now there's over 1,700, so it's a pretty big jump.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was to put on the CV, I have like a big film forum, people would probably chuck the CV in. And in terms of what Saul just asked about telling other people in real life, I have mentioned it to people occasionally. It depends on the situation. I normally what I do is I would normally say to people, if I'm talking about the film forum, I'd say, we've met people all over the world through it because it makes it sound a little bit more, it sounds like a bit more social. The fact that there's been like worldwide meetings, so many different countries, that's the kind of thing I would mention. Like we've done forum holidays, we've done forum meetups. So in those occasions, I would say that I know the people through the film forum. But I wouldn't normally just go around telling everyone I am an admin on the forum, member number one.
Yeah, I do bring it up with some people. Usually if I'm friends with people, I mention the forum because I usually talk about forum drama with people. But I mean, yeah, I don't just go, oh yeah, by the way, I'm admin of a film forum. But when people find out that I'm into movies and I become friendly with them, I usually do end up bringing it up. And I do talk about the fact that we've met people all over the world. And I also sometimes, use examples of, say, like with the COVID-19 about how different it is in the different countries as opposed to here. So it's nice to have that sort of reference. It's not news. It's actually people's personal lives.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what's amazing, when we started the forum back in 2011, we had absolutely no idea that suddenly, people would be meeting all over the world and everything. So it's been it's been an amazing part of the forum. I mean, I've met people in London, I've met them, we went to Malta, Croatia, I met people in America. So yeah, it's been really, I know there's meetups in Holland, Netherlands,
Endless meetups in Holland.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really great to think, that we started the forum and all these people have met up, that we've done forum holidays, and it's a very nice positive thing that we could never have expected at all when we started it.
That's so true, and even the founders of I Check Movies came to at least one of the meetups too.
Yeah, there's a lot of Dutch users on the website, isn't there?
I was just going to say that the first ICM forum meetup was with just me and Adam, which was awful, but I got better.
Lauren and I used to talk every day back then, and yeah, we met up in London, and Lauren was a little bit shy,
a little bit,
and we kind of walked around
in pain,
and it was extremely challenging. And then what I remember most is we went to get some food, and I went to the toilet, and no joking at all, I thought that Lauren was going to leave. I was expecting to come out and find that Lauren had left because it was so awkward, And then luckily we ended up meeting with her dad, and once we met her dad, Lauren started speaking a lot more because she was more comfortable. But it shows, it is quite strange, especially, I think for some people especially, it's quite strange when you've spoken to someone online for so long or posted on the forum for so long, and then suddenly you meet them in person. And I think the fact it was just the two of us meeting together, normally the meetups have been quite a few people at once, but the fact it was just the two of us kind of walking around, yeah, it was quite a strange experience.
And I was very, very shy back then. I could not speak to people, so it was really scary.
I mean, I would literally be asking questions, and Lauren would say one word, and it looked like she wanted to kill me. But yeah, I genuinely thought Lauren was going to run away, so it was quite a relief when we met her dad. And I think Napoleon was probably the first big meetup that we had.
Yeah,
there's about 10 or 11 people that came to London for that, that was incredible. I remember someone posted the idea about there was a 5-hour showing of Napoleon, and it started off with a couple of people going, and suddenly it grew and grew, and it became 10 or 11 of us, which was amazing. And actually, my favorite part of that wasn't watching Napoleon. It was we went to the pub afterwards. And sadly, we didn't have that much time in the pub, but that personally, I'd rather we just gone to the pub for the whole day than sat and watched Napoleon for 5 hours. I hadn't slept very well the night before, so I spent the entire time trying to stay awake. It was such a long screening that we had a meal in between because it was a break, and that was really amazing. So many of us meet together. That was the first time I think when I was like, wow, the forum's actually got the capability of bringing people together like that in person, and that went great. Lauren was speaking a lot. Everyone spoke a lot. I think everyone felt quite comfortable at that, actually.
Yeah, that's so true, and I think that it's just also phenomenal that all of these people you have so long relationships with online, it's usually almost exactly the same, meeting them in person, and conversation flows so easily and just about absolutely everything.
I think there was an I Check People website at some point as well.
That would be hilarious. Yeah, an I Check People website where you just meet every single one. Oh, and Adam technically lived with me for a week as well, just to throw that out there.
Yeah, on holiday, just to be clear. I didn't move in. Yeah, so we had holidays in Malta and Croatia, and there was a second holiday in Malta which I wasn't at, but that was all forum people as well, and that was great.
Yeah, I think it's incredible. I don't think I've ever seen, I remember there's being mini meetups for other forums before, but I don't think any forum has ever taken it this far and created such strong personal bonds outside of the forum too, which is just absolutely fantastic, and such a unique and special thing about ICM Forum?
When I went to New York, I met Casper, Local Hero, and Walter Neff as well. And I think they all started meeting up with Bernie Fan, and there was a few of them that met up quite a lot as well. So
I met with all of them as well when I went to New York.
yeah, so it's been great, really. Lots of meetups everywhere, different continents. I don't think there's been an Australian meetup yet.
No, well, for years I was the only Australian around, and then now we got Sol.
Yeah, we had a no Aussie policy because we wanted Lauren to be the only one. So Sol, you were lucky. We didn't know you were Australian when you joined, so.
You should come to Australia, and then we actually can have an Australian meetup.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can do a fundraiser on the forum, and we can get Chris and everyone else we can do a podcast from Australia.
We're doing well with the COVID-19. You'll just need to stay in a quarantine hotel for 14 days.
Yeah, maybe we'll do it next year. So start saving up, please. Once the podcast becomes big, we start making money from it, it can fund the trips, and we can bring other forum people with us.
Oh yes, and we can have a talking images, not just a meetup, but like a convention where all our fans come.
Yeah, like next time there's a forum holiday, they can do a podcast as well.
Live in person. We can do the festival tour as well.
I actually think Chris would be amazing doing it in person. I could make a big show. It'd be harder to edit though in person, I guess.
Let's just say this is our new goal. And I think this has been an absolutely fantastic blast of a, what shall we say, organ story as well. So obviously everything ended up really well. People matured, the forum grew, we got so many more new people coming in, including the massive exodus from IMDb, which luckily included Sol and so many others. And I think for me, just to close this off, it's just the difference between then and now. I just don't think there's any real comparison from just being like a close-knit group of teenagers and early 20-year-olds joking around to just so much great quality in that discussion and list creation, and there's just so much effort being put in there, including developers creating their own unique scripts. So it's just such a fantastic community that's grown so much.
I wanted to say a big thank you to everyone, because when the old forum software was changing to Tap Talk, we had to do a fundraiser just to move to our own forum, and we got absolutely tons of contributions. I think it was like 10 times what we'd asked for, which funded us for years. So yeah, thanks to everyone who's posted on there. If you've donated, even if you haven't donated, we just thank you for continuing to contribute. It's been a lot better than we ever expected it to be.
I was really surprised at how much we managed to raise to get the new domain name and hosting once the Zeta boards changed to Tapatalk. It was really just way more than we expected, and it's awesome that we've got enough to keep the forum running for years. And of course, everyone who didn't donate money, they're donating their time and thoughts and feelings of film and keeping it alive. So it's really great.
I'll just give a big thank you to Adam and Lauren for running the I Check Movies forum and keeping it going so well for so many years. It was really, as I said before, just a godsend being able to migrate there when IMDb shut down. And after using it for 3.5 years, close to 9,000 posts on there, I think it's so much better than everything else I've become used to with movie forums. So I'm just incredibly grateful, and there's not a day that goes by that I'm not amazed by what the two of you have done by putting this gigantic film community together.
Yeah, I also need to say thanks to Peaceful Anarchy. He's done a massive amount, particularly once we moved to the new forum. Without him, I think it would have been impossible. And all the moderators and everyone else who posts all the time, and just the whole community. I don't think it's really about Lauren and I anymore. I think it's about the fact that we've got so many people that post regularly or read the forum. And also, it was amazing when the IMDb people moved over. I think that gave us it added so much to the forum, and I think we really needed that. Getting a new group of people, and they've all been so great. Contributed so much. There's no conflicts, no issues whatsoever. So hopefully we get another influx from somewhere else at some point, because it's always great to get a nice new group of people. And the last couple of years, I think, on the forum have been much better from them all joining as well. So yeah, hooray for icmforum.com.
Yeah, it really did end up being a bit of a circle jerk, didn't it? But that's also because because the forum and the services are so great, and there's just so much that we do there. It's going to sound like an advert, but I mean, we do so many monthly challenges where it's just like people agree on specific types of films, like a film from a country or decade or genre, etc., that they want to explore, and then they do it. And some people watch hundreds. Lauren mentioned in her previous episode that she watched 306 horror films in one single month because of the horror challenge, which is so bloody impressive. And then we have doubling the canon project, where we double the canon from They Should Picture Dante, which is also like something that goes back to the IMDb forums. We have our own unique poll specifically for iCheck Movies, which is an official lister, which is the 500 films with less than 400 checks. And then we even have our own festival with programmers working year-round, finding and selecting out films, and just a massive participation of people watching and reviewing these films is just absolutely incredible. Just what you guys were able to create and what we've been able to take part of, it's just absolutely fantastic.
If I can just say one final thing, I think on top of all of that, I think the kind of emotional support that people have on the community anytime anyone's in trouble or anything has been amazing. And feel free to edit this, but I know when Rock passed away a few years ago, for example, I think that's when you saw how much people really cared about the forum and about the different people on it. And we still miss him every day on the forum.
I've just mentioned another project that we do really well on the ICM forum is a World Cup, in which people select films from different countries to compete against each other, and you watch 4 of them at once, and you try and work out which country has got the best film. It is not so much fun when you're being the manager for Canada and nobody likes the Canadian film that you've chosen. But in general, it's a good project that helps get some more unseen or underseen films out there in the open.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also do monthly polls where we select, best films by genre and decade as well, which often tie in with the genres. And of course, I think bi-weekly top 10 of the decade list as well, or which we run through. So it's just so much activity, and then just every single discussion topic of pretty much absolutely anything, which can go so in depth. It's just fantastic.
We've also got a weekly thread where you can post which movies you've seen each week and or discuss them. Or if you're a new member, we're able to come in, post a few comments on what you've seen, comment on what other people have seen, and maybe start some discussions.
So yeah, I guess you kind of look through the point of this episode too. It's not just telling you a wild but heavily censored story. It's also a major call to action to join icmforum.com. And with that, once again, thank you, Adam and Lauren, for creating it all. And join us again next time when there's a lot less of a circle jerk and a lot less pandering and a lot less salesy promotion. So thank you for listening, and join us again soon. You have been listening to Talking Images, the official podcast of icmforum.com.